All right, we got a preview for you here. We're doing this on Wednesday, November 29th, but the game is Thursday. It's Creighton on the road at Oklahoma State. Should be an interesting game, mostly because I don't think we know what version of Creighton's going to show up right now. They look like a team that was just totally terrified of what was happening in their blowout loss to Colorado State. And the floodgates sort of opened up, and there was no stopping the disaster that ensued. They've had a full week off, 7 days. Typically, that helps a team that's struggling get back on track. Very high ceiling team still, but boy, it was a stinker the last time out against Isaiah Stevens and the Rams. I got Tristan Freeman with me today from Busting Brackets. He's here in place of Carter Elliott, who has the sniffles, maybe some serious sniffles, who's to say. But Tristan, it's a pleasure to have you here previewing Creighton, Oklahoma State. What do you expect from this game?
Yeah, I mean, considering what happened with the Rams, this should be a spot where Creighton just goes off and just dominates an Oklahoma State team that could be the second worst team in the Big 12. I mean, they're 3-3. They lost to Abilene Christian open the year. They lost to St. Bonaventure, Notre Dame. Notre Dame should be the second worst power conference roster, and the fact that they couldn't beat them is a problem. It's a true road game in the end of November. It could be a sneaky spot considering Nebraska's up next for Creighton. That's a nice little rivalry game, but they should dominate. But quite frankly, I'm only looking at one player. I'm pretty sure you're thinking about him too. It's all about how the Stephen Ashworth looks, because that's sort of the key to what Creighton's going to be this year.
Are you implying that Creighton is looking ahead to Nebraska?
Well, hey, shout out the guy, but unbeaten Nebraska. And don't forget what happened last year. Nebraska went into Creighton's building and handled them. Like, this is a legit revenge game for them, one that matters. And look, if this was like Texas Tech or a decent Big 12 team, then like maybe you focus a little more on them. But there's no reason why Creighton should lose this game if they're any bit of the actual contender we think they are.
I guess that's fair. It's crazy to step back broadly and be like, oh yeah, a team is looking past a road game at Oklahoma State to get to Nebraska. Like, I think you're probably accurate in the fact that it's a revenge game, but it'll be a fascinating mental hurdle for Creighton here. One, because I think it's always hard to come back, even if you had a bunch of time. It's always hard to come back after you just put up such a horrible performance. And I think I can see this being a situation where it's almost worse that they've had to wait so long. Not that I expect like major rust or anything like that, but sometimes, like, if you're a good team and you just play poorly, sometimes the best thing is to like go play the next day and shake it off and not have to sit with your thoughts a little bit. I'm a little curious just to see. I don't want to predict it, but like, I mean, Trey Alexander missed 15 shots in that game. He was 1 for 16 from the floor. And Trey Alexander's obviously awesome, but I'm fascinated to see where he'll be mentally coming into this game. Is he still going to be the aggressive version of himself, or has he had 7 days to sit and dwell on his 15 missed shots that might make him come out of the gates a little slow? You mentioned Ashworth. I do agree he is like the unknown with this team, because I think we know Alexander and Baylor Shireman are great offensive weapons. We know Calc's one of the best bigs in the country. We know everybody else from Isaac Trout to Farabello to King is like playable, but not going to give you anything crazy. Ashworth's the guy where if he's really good, it swings this team in a huge positive way. And if he's just average, all of a sudden we're not taking Creighton nearly as seriously as we did last year when Ryan Nemhard and Arthur Kaluma were there. So do you believe that Stephen Ashworth will end up being a great positive weapon for this team, or are you skeptical?
I'm skeptical right now because he's averaging 8 points through 6 games, and he had one big game, and that was against Florida A&M. Everything else has been mediocre to bad. I mean, he went scoreless against Iowa. And yeah, they won the game, so it doesn't really matter, but he played poorly against Colorado State. And, some of these transfers just aren't going to work out. I think one thing that, for those of us who follow all the transfers in the offseason, we have to remember that at best 50 to 60% of them are good as we thought. Then there's about another 15, 20% that are average or a little underwhelming. Then they're just flat out bust. And there's a few of them that we could talk about for another pod that has struggled. Ashworth just might not be that guy that can be great as a fourth option. He was number one option in Utah State. He is the clear fourth option. Baylor Shireman has sort of emerged as the great score for him, 18 a game. Obviously, Kyle Burns going to get his own, and Trey Alexander, who's looking to put up numbers to go pro next year, he's going to get his. Can Ashworth be effective getting his 8 to 10 shots a game while still being positive on the offensive end? I'm still not sure about that. And then you mentioned Kaluma, him being gone. They basically have two guys replacing him, Mason Miller and Trout from Virginia. They've both collectively basically been the same as Kaluma, around 12 points and 6 rebounds a game. They haven't really been anything otherworldly. I think there was some thoughts that Mason Miller could sort of be a breakout candidate for them. He's been okay. So if you're getting the same production from the 4 spot, less production at the 1 spot, and then the other 3 are sort of the same, then, you have to wonder that is Creighton's ceiling as high as we thought compared to some of the other teams, even in the Big East, such as UConn and Marquette, who I think have easily looked more impressive than them so far.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say this is my preseason national title pick. I'm not running away from that yet, but I'm definitely watching this with my eyebrows raised right now. I think from what we've seen at this point in the season, they are clearly behind Marquette and UConn, and they are arguably behind Villanova. I don't think the version of Creighton with the version of Ashworth they're getting right now goes and wins the battle for Atlantis the way Villanova just did. And if these two teams play tomorrow, I'm going to side with Creighton because I believe in their upside. But I think they're a far away from what I hope they are at the end of the season. And Ashworth really is the key piece because he was supposed to be a guy who could come in and score 15 to 20 a night, not 0 against Iowa. I mean, that's the biggest red flag I've ever seen. If you don't score against Fran McCaffrey's defense, I don't know what we're doing here. Oklahoma State, I know we kind of shrugged them off. Just one quick thing on them. Does this game being played, where it's being played in Stillwater, matter to you at all? How many points is that worth in this game?
It matters some because this is, from the non-conference standpoint, their Super Bowl. Because after this, they don't really play anyone until Big 12 play. And if you're Mike Boynton, who is clearly on the hot seat, you have a roster full of okay guys, a decent freshman class with Eric Daly, who's pretty good, but Javon Small being your best player, I think we've seen that has its flaws. They have to put everything into this game. If they don't win this game, or at least make it close to where you can give your fans optimism, then you're going to go the rest of this month without really playing anyone. And then league play, where the first week you could potentially get stomped out and then completely fall off the radar. So it matters. This is a must, if not win, but just must perform kind of game for them. And Creighton's vulnerable. If you can't perform well against a team coming off their own letdown, then Mike Boynton's going to be on a really, really big hot seat going.
Yeah, I don't like really anything about this Oklahoma State roster, but this does feel like spot-wise like a game that historically Oklahoma State could pounce on. Team that is struggling with their shot, might be struggling a little bit mentally, coming in on the road in a game where Oklahoma State has nothing to lose and could get a huge resume boost here, right? I wish I could talk myself into it. I don't think I can talk myself into it. I just think Creighton's better across every single position in this game. And go ahead.
Yeah, the one positive part is that they do match up well on the perimeter. They have a lot of guards that they could throw at Alexander, because Bryce Thompson should be back. He's missed a few games. Javon Small, Kenley Bobville, and then Mike. Forgetting the one guy, but he's 5'9". Michael Wright, the shorter guy, he can guard Ashworth. And that shouldn't be an issue for them. And they don't really have a ton of size outside of Mike Morris to throw out Kalkbrenner, but if they can at least hold their own inside, it could get interesting, because this ultimately might come down to whether or not Alexander has a good shooting game.
Yeah, they've been pretty good 2-point defense, 38th in the country this year. I'm looking at the wrong category. 76th in the country, still pretty good. They do allow a lot of 3-point attempts though, which again, I think this kind of just comes down to are Creighton's guys hitting? Are they confident? Are they stepping into these shots? And if Trey Alexander, if he opens the game 0 for 3 from the floor, that's going to be a lean forward in my seat. Let's lock in on this game for me. I think it could get really hairy. If he just makes his first shot from the floor, I like Creighton in a blowout here. Give your official prediction here. KenPom has Oklahoma State losing by 6 at home. What do you think happens?
I got this one 86-76 Creighton.
Okay, I'm with you. I think it's a double-digit win in the end for Creighton, even if it's a little bit ugly to get there. All right, follow Sleepers Media. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can get all of our game recaps and previews all season long. That's Tristan Freeman from Busting Brackets. I'm GregWaddell from Sleepers Media. We will see you next time.